I want to talk to you today about setting up a line follow program. What we're going to do is come over here. This is our motor control, but we're going to go to our flow control and grab a switch. This is sort of an if-then statement, a true-false statement. There's a couple ways to think about it, but the gist of it is it's going to check to see if this value is true, and if it is, it's going to do this, and if it's false, it's going to do this. And we're going to use this to detect our line. So the sensor we use to detect our line is a light sensor. So I'm going to switch which sensor. I'm going to switch what we're looking for by clicking right here, going to color sensor, which is the same thing as a light sensor. Usually we use compared light and reflected light, the gist of that being the sensor is going to look down and just basically check how much light do I see. For a black line, it's not going to see very much light at all because we know black lines do not reflect much light, and white lines will absolutely reflect quite a lot of light. So I'm going to grab that sensor, I'm going to say reflected light value less than, and this is a number you're going to have to play with, and we'll take a look at how to use light sensors in another video. But you're going to want to pick a value that is looking at for a black line, so a low value, usually something less than 20, less than 15. Again, we'll talk about how to use light sensors in another video. But for me, this is going to work to find that black line. If it's on a black line, the value will be less than 20. If it's on a white line, it will be significantly more than 20. So if that value is true, meaning if my robot is on a black line, I would like it to turn slightly to the left. And so I'm going to use my move tank block, and I'm going to set it to move slightly to the left, not turn left. I'm not going to turn the value to 0, but what I am going to do is I have found that moving slower is better. So I'm going to reduce one side to 40, and I'm going to reduce the other side to 20. The bigger the difference in those values, the more it's going to turn. So if you're trying to follow a curved line, or if you're trying to follow a line that turns a little bit and you're finding it's not staying on the line, try increasing the difference between those two numbers to get the robot to turn more while it's on those lines. And you'll kind of notice that. So I might switch this to 10 and keep this at 40 if I want it to turn more to follow it around a curve or something like that. If it sees not black, basically if it sees the white, I want it to turn the other way. I want it to turn back to the right. So you're going to end up with this left, right, left, right, left, right thing going on with your robot. If it's too jerky, if it's too left, right, and too jerky, then these values are too far apart. If it's nice and smooth, if it's something that your robot can follow, then it works. So for this one, I'm simply going to change my values to the other way. 40, 20. This way, it turns to the right. So when it sees a black line, it will turn to the left. When it sees a white line, it'll turn to the right. Now, the way I have it set up right now, it's only going to check this every one rotation. So it's basically going to do this for one rotation, then it's going to check to see if this value is true. Then it's going to do it for one rotation, then check to see if this value is true. And if I have it set up that way, there's a good chance it's going to overshoot the lines, and I'm not going to get the results I want. However, if I change this instead of on for rotations to just on, it will make it so that it's always checking that line and always looking at that line. So that's what I recommend that you do. Now, the way this is set up, it's going to check once, and then it's going to do whatever thing I've asked it to do. So if I'm on a black line, it's going to do this forever. It's going to do my on a black line forever. If I do this, it's going to do my on a white line forever. What I have to do to get it to keep checking is put this whole thing in a loop. And by doing that, instead of just checking once and then doing whatever I've asked it to do, it's going to do this, then it's going to check again. Are we still on a black line? Yes, do this. Are we still on a black line? Yes, do this. Are we still on a black line? No, do this. Are we still on a not black line? Do this, right? It's going to keep going through this over and over and over again. When is it going to stop? That's this value right here. This is the end of our loop. When do we get out of the loop? When do we end the loop? There's a lot of ways to do this. You can do it on rotations. Pick a motor, pick your rotations, measure how far you want the robot to go, and then when the rotations hit whatever value you'd like, greater than, let's say we wanted to do it for 5.3 rotations. At this point, when my motor that's plugged into A goes more than 5.3 rotations, the loop will stop. Okay? Sometimes you want it to go until it sees a black line. Don't use the same sensor. This sensor is trying to follow the black line. This is sensor number 3. I might use a different light sensor to detect a black line. So in this case, I would change my sensor to whatever my other light sensor is plugged into. And it's usually trying to find another black line, so I'm going to use that same value as before, less than 20. So now, this sensor is following the black line. This sensor is looking for another black line. It's a different sensor. Okay? And what's going to happen is when it sees that sensor, it's going to come out of the loop, but it's going to keep doing whatever is the last thing it did because it doesn't have another command. So at the end of your loop, it's a good idea to put another move tank block, and I always switch it to off. It doesn't have to be off. You could switch it to be able to change or go a different direction, but this just stops your robot. This stops it where it is, and then you can do your next thing. It's a good way just to check and see what you've got going on. That is a basic line follow program that you can use. It's got some different settings. It's got some different things to look at. But good luck.